Hello again, everybody. My name is Tharpasultrim, aka Liberation Discipline, aka William Fogarty, as most of y'all know me. So, this week has been quite interesting, in some ways challenging, and there's been a lot of thoughts on my mind, a lot of observations, reflections, and otherwise. So I figured what better place to share this with than on Meditation Diaries. As I said before, my intention is to talk about Buddhism, spirituality, the spiritual path, but also to, make it personal, make it real. It's funny, if I would have started this meditation channel even a year ago, it would have been so much different, because our relationship with ourselves on the spiritual path continues to develop and grow, and it's not linear, it's not stagnant, it's a very dynamic process. So it's just funny to me to sit here and share with you guys after so much internal work, but I'm going to do my best to keep it real, to keep it helpful, and to keep it insightful. So if I can do those three things, then I'll feel like a champion. So today's episode, I want to talk about suffering and pain on the spiritual path, and how we transform difficult circumstances into opportunities for us to grow. Now, that might seem a little bit selfish depending on what has arisen. Obviously, with some of the most difficult, challenging situations of our life, the passing of loved ones, breakups, losing a job, it affects so many people that it can be difficult for us to deal with it ourselves, to be able to look at what's happening within us honestly and truthfully, and to experience what is going on at the deeper levels of our being. It's really strange how different people handle grief, and I don't mean strange in a pejorative way or a bad way in any way, shape, or form. It's just that as an American culture, we tend to not be so expressive about it. It's not something that we like to confront. It's not something we like to face. It definitely isn't something we like to bring up during small talk. Getting asked at work, like, how are you? Oh, I just had this really horrible thing happen. And then, you get token responses from people. Oh, I'm sorry, feel better. Some things that really aren't helpful, and makes it feel like there's even more wrong, just by how they kind of react to it and treat you afterwards. So I'm going to begin by speaking about something that I think is very important, especially for those people that are just starting on the spiritual path or are considering starting, is that it really is worth it to develop a practice while you are in a good state of mind. What I mean by this, and this is an example that I've probably talked a lot about with different of my friends or relatives, but last year I had a friend of mine pass away, and it was a huge, huge loss for so much of the community. And even now, talking about it, I feel self-conscious because, the grief of her family, the grief of her closest friends, kind of makes me feel unworthy to talk about it in some ways. But, this is Meditation Diaries, this is real stuff, so I'm doing my best to be open and share about it. I called a friend of mine to see how he was doing, and he told me he wished he had started doing some breathing exercises before this had happened. Now, I was proud of him because he took the chance to check in with himself and say, how am I doing? He wasn't worried about consoling everyone else, which is something that some people do. He took at least that moment to check in and be like, how is this genuinely affecting me deep down? And obviously it was quite devastating. But it was interesting to me that this was one of the things that he talked about. Earlier that week, I had sent him a meditation video on some simple breathing exercises for stressful situations. Very simple technique. You can try it at home. Basically, all it has to do with is slowing your breath, deepening it, and holding your hands around your heart center. So what this is intended to do is to strengthen your mind-body connection, to reunite your brain and your heart into the one similar frequency. And I can say with, a lot of experience that it's extremely hard to start when you're in a place of tremendous pain. And this is also a place where some self-destructive habits tend to turn up. So it really is advantageous for you, if you're watching this video, to at least equip yourself with some tools while things are relatively stable or okay, because then you're really going to use those tools and you're going to lean into them so much when things get harder. One of my favorite Buddhist teachers, Jack Kornfield, I forget who he quotes this from, but he talks about this all the time on his podcast. He says, if we can't find joy in the midst of our suffering, then what good is our spiritual practice? Not to say that everything's going to be sunshine and rainbows and you're never going to feel pain again. Of course you're going to feel pain, and you're going to feel it a lot more authentically in certain ways if you are able to sit with it, if you're able to nurture it, if you're able to breathe through it and meditate with it. Yeah. So I'm going to bump this down to a little less extreme version than the passing of someone we care about. And I'm going to talk about a situation that I experienced in my everyday life and kind of tie this into what I was talking about, where I was last year and where I am now. So last year, I was very kind of excited and overly ambitious about coming into the Buddhist path, about learning how to meditate. I was super gung-ho, and a lot of people experienced this, but I was like, yeah, I'm going to save the world through meditation. I'm going to get everyone I know to meditate. I'm going to talk about it 24/7, and I'm going to wake up and be this enlightened being, and didn't really work out like that. One of the situations that I found particularly telling about where I thought I should be or where I wanted to be and where I was encountering homeless people in the city of Chicago. So I do work in the city, and one of the things that I always struggled with was being approached by a homeless person and them asking you for money. This is, if you live in the city, this is a pretty common dilemma, unfortunately. And the way that I kind of looked at it is like, oh, what can I get out of this situation? How can I feel good about myself in this situation? I remember this day I went to Panera Bread. Homeless man asked me for a sandwich, seemed very upset in a way that kind of touched me. He was genuinely like, I just want a sandwich. I was like, okay, this is my chance. This guy is asking for food. He's not asking for money. This is the dream scenario for someone who wants to feel like they're making a difference. So I go in, I say, give me a pick two, because I want to give him something. And again, I'm focusing on what I want. I want to give him something that I would be happy eating. And my intention was pretty good. I wanted him to feel dignified. I wanted to give this to him and say, I really hope you enjoy this. And, try to treat him on kind of a level where it's not like, oh, here, just throwing money at him or throwing food at him. There's this story of, I forget who the teacher was, but Pema Chodron talked about this in one of her audiobooks. So there was a teacher in Tibet, and he was going to a remote monastery in the countryside, and the taxi driver was taking him through these villages, and every village he went to, he handed out coins, but instead of throwing them out the window like some tourists do, he handed them to the child individually, one by one, and kind of gave them a Buddhist blessing. And he did this to, dignify them, to say, you are worthy of this, and as a way to kind of, show them that there's more to them than just being a homeless person. So in my mind, I had this very romantic, oh, I'm going to give him this, he's going to be so grateful, we're both going to go our separate ways, feeling dignified. Go inside, get the sandwich, everything's good. Come outside, he's gone. But there's another man, so there's another opportunity for me to give it to someone. So I walk up to him and I try with all my sincerity. I'm like, here you go, sir. Like, please enjoy this meal. I really would like to eat this myself too, so I hope you enjoy it. And this man took it from me without making eye contact, kind of looked in it, didn't say thank you, anything like that. Just started eating it. Doesn't sound like a big deal. Maybe to some people they're like, what? But yeah, he didn't thank me, and I got upset by it. So here I am coming in, and I have this noble idea of who I am, and I'm going to be embodying this Buddhist teaching, and it's going to be so great. And then, I didn't get thanked, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, well, how ungrateful, and, a lot of unflattering discourse internally. And later I talked with my dad about it. My dad's a gang interventionist, and I told him, like, I was trying, like, and I thought my intention was really, really good. I wanted him to feel dignified, and I wanted to help him feel dignified. And he said that's a lot of the problems that happen when people work with the poor. It's that they expect to get something out of it. And a lot of times they expect to see progress, and they think if I'm putting in the effort, then the people should put in the effort. And it doesn't happen a lot of times. You don't get what you want out of working with the poor. You don't get what you want out of donations. You don't get what you want out of life circumstances. And this can really trigger you. Even if you think your heart's in the right place, it can trigger you. So, having developed my practice a little bit more, having looked deeply into my own motivations behind dealing with these, people that I come across, and you come across them often. If you're riding the train, there will be at least a couple people that approach you and ask you, they ask you for money, they ask you for food. And I'm going to tell you this story about a trip back. So I was a trip back to the suburbs from the city. I was riding the train, and, the first man comes up to me. He approaches me. He speaks thoughtfully and says, oh, hi, my name's Joseph. I am homeless. I'm working to get out of it. Can you give me some money for some food? So I had $11, 2 5s, and a single in my pocket. And I say, you know what? Sure. He approached me with dignity. He was humble. He thanked me. We shook hands. And, I gave him 5 of the $11. And I just said, it's not in my control. I am giving with the intention of him being able to take care of himself. And I don't know the outcome. I'm not expecting to get anything out of it. I'm not trying to tell him what to do with it. All I said is, I hope it makes you happy. Let it go. Not 10, 15 minutes later, another man gets on the train. Homeless man carrying a paper bag, or a plastic bag, sorry. and he goes, he kind of makes an announcement like, "Hi, I'm looking for donations or any food that you have. Like, please help me. Like, am just here to eat. I need food." So he started taking out cheese sticks and eating them. So I'm thinking, okay, well, this is clearly an indicator that this person is really in need of food. You know, he's eating just 6 cheese sticks. I didn't have any food. I just gave away money. I was like, I don't think I can give it to him. You know, you're not supposed to give people money is what I thought. Kind of went back and forth, very apprehensive. And then he goes, "Can anyone hear me?" Because no one had responded to him. And for me, that just hit me hard. Like, can you imagine being ignored by 99% of the people that you encounter about humbling yourself enough to ask for assistance and not even getting looked in the eye? Because we do it. We do it. It's just, it is what it is. We do it. I avoid eye contact with people. I ignore them. I just kind of shake my head. Oh, no. You know that feeling? It's like, get me away. You kind of speed up, start walking faster. Yeah, I mean, things I'm saying aren't flattering, but they're true. At least in my experience. And obviously, I'm not the only one of my friends who does this. Anyways, that sounded like I'm trying to let myself off the hook, but it's also true. So anyways, someone comes up to him and gives him a Snickers bar, and this man's face lit up like I've never seen before. And he goes, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Like, all of a sudden his whole day just turns around. And he's eating the Snickers, and he's eating a cheese stick, and he's like pressing them together for like a mini sandwich, and he goes, "I got myself a sweet, cheesy surprise." I was like, wow. I was just blown away. Like, this, there's so many layers to this. Like, A, I'm freaked out. I'm like, oh, should I be giving it to him? Should I not be giving it to him? I don't know. And then he's so grateful for this Snickers bar. And I'm like, wow. I don't know the last time I felt something so spontaneously grateful about anything. So I go in my backpack, I like have some books, I'm like just looking for something like, oh, how can I feel better about this situation? I find these loving kindness prayer cards and these intention cards that I carry with me. And I start doing aspirations for them. May you be filled with loving kindness, may you be safe, may you be well in mind and body. And all this while, it's like this $6 is like getting heavier in my pocket. I'm like, okay, what could I possibly do with $6 that would bring me the joy of him with cheese sticks and Snickers? So finally, I'm like, I'm just going to give it to him. I'm going to tell him, like, and I sat down, and again, I tried to be genuine, and I said, I really hope that you use this money. I gave him the $6. I said, I really hope you use this money to do something that makes you genuinely happy. Like, buy yourself a food. I know it's not much, but buy yourself something that makes you genuinely happy. And he looks at me and he goes, what would make me happy is sharing a meal with friends and family. I could pick an apple off a tree for free and share it with a friend, and that would be the happiest meal of my life. And I'm just speechless at this point. And we end up talking for 15 minutes on the train. Just me and him. This guy who gets on the train and says, can anyone hear me? His name's Xavier. I learned 2 homeless people's names in this train ride. It didn't dawn on me until I got off that those are the only 2 homeless persons' names I can think of. Period. Those are the only people's names I've learned. I come across, in a year, hundreds of people who ask me for money. Not once have I even thought about asking their name. And I don't think I could have gotten into a situation where I have this conversation with this man without meditating and reflecting and looking deeply into the situation. It was a long train ride. Granted, a lot of the times there's split-second decisions. You don't get a lot of opportunity to contemplate, oh, should I give him money? Should I not give him money? Should I buy him food? Should I not buy him food? But when I started doing those loving kindness meditations, it made me realize the best thing that I can try to offer is my presence. Even if he says fuck you, even if he doesn't thank me, even if, you know, whatever I hope to get out of the situation, it really doesn't matter. If I can try to be present, if I can at least make him feel heard during this last 15-20 minutes of this train ride, well then that was something that he needed, and that he expressed overtly a need for companionship. So when you're looking at situations in your life that make you uncomfortable, or like we discussed before, that are truly painful, they really are opportunities. There's a Lojong slogan, which is a slogan for mind training, and it comes from the Tibetan and Indian traditions. I wish I could be more specific, but the slogan is transform all mishaps into the path of the Bodhi. So what this means is transform all of your life circumstances, whether they're happy and joyous, or whether they're really uncomfortable or deeply devastating and painful. It's in the best interest of us, but it's also in the best interest of everyone around us that we're able to deal with this. When we do the work within ourselves, then we're able to shine forth as a light in the world in a way that we were completely incapable of before. If we're paralyzed by our fear, if we're unable or unwilling to face pain, then we're just going to keep falling into the same painful cycles that we got stuck in the first place, and they're going to get exacerbated. Like, if you have a drinking problem and something horrible goes wrong, your first instinct isn't going to be to meditate, generally speaking, but I feel like I can say that with confidence. I mean, I've had situations. I went to West Virginia University where things didn't go right in my life, and I turned to alcohol during college. It did not serve me. It did not help the problems. It made them a lot worse usually. And then you're just compounding. You're compounding, and then people around you suffer. My parents suffered. My mother suffered. The people that I interacted with when I was acting ignorant or belligerent, they suffered. We are all interdependent, and our actions always have consequences. Not in a way to be like, oh, you should be afraid to do anything, because that's not the case either. But just a healthy level of awareness that the way that we feel inside and the way that we cope with our pain is going to have either a positive or a negative impact on those around us, or neutral. But yeah, so I implore you guys, if you guys have watched this video, then A, you're troopers, because this has gone on quite a while, but I've had a lot to say. And B, I really, really, really want the best for all of you. I want the best for everyone. Even if it doesn't always feel like that, I do. And I try, sometimes too hard, to help people and not do any harm. So, if you've watched this far, I just really ask you, do the work now. Do it while you have some time, while you have some space, while you have some energy, when you're not completely overwhelmed or drowning in grief. Do it with situations that make you uncomfortable. Do it with situations that are just so unbelievably difficult, and just know that you're not doing it alone. I've been there. My friends have been there. We've all been there. We're all human beings. And it really is, it sounds cliche, but it really is true. You don't have to scratch the surface very hard to get people to open up about their traumas. That's what my meditation instructor told me today. So, thank you so much for joining me for this edition of Meditation Diaries. I'm going to leave you with a slight sound meditation, probably pretty short, as a way for you to take time to reflect, to let go, and to see what's unresolved in your own heart, to consider what are some of the things that hold you back. If this is a time of plenty for you, then just know this is a wonderful opportunity for you to begin or begin anew, or pick up wherever you left off, or pick up for a completely new place. It's a wonderful opportunity for that. If you're in the middle of some really hard times, I hope this video can be of some comfort and solace to know that even if things are difficult, you can make different choices. And a reminder to be very forgiving of yourself if you do act out in certain ways. Because no matter when you're watching this, it's never too late for you. Again, it sounds like a cliche, but it's really true. If you believe in karma, the consequences of your actions, there is no such thing as avoiding your problems. You're just kicking it down the road. And there's no such thing as avoiding your pain. You're just kicking it down the road. So, now is a perfect moment for all of us to begin anew, to take some conscious breaths. And to be thankful for even the most difficult circumstances in our lives as a way to transform and cultivate our own hearts. Thank you for joining me again for this version of Meditation Diaries for this episode. I look forward to sharing with you again soon. And remember, it's never too late. And now is the perfect time for you to pick up wherever you last left off. Best wishes, namaste, and have a great rest of your week.